Welcome to the Chi for Two podcast. We're a group of Chi for Two embodiment coaches that look at pop culture with a Chi for Two lens. I'm Chelsea Szegidewicz.
I'm Fred Shelton.
I'm Cas Pryor.
And this is the Chi for Two podcast. Chi for Two is a mindful embodiment method.
The term Chi is used to denote the energy in and around our bodies.
And for two brings attention to how the two-person interactions affect our life force energy, our Chi.
Whoa. And today we're talking about the movie A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. Oh my goodness, you guys. I've watched it 3 times now, and I rewatched it this morning, and I have lots of notes. With the beginning being our friend David, who's played by the beautiful Colin Farrell. Yes. And he's on the phone with his mom and dad, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to a wedding this weekend. And they're like, oh, you're going alone? Oh, he's just ready to get off the phone. And his parents are asking him why he's going alone. And
he is trying to rush them off the phone. And he approaches his vehicle, right?
Yeah.
And then he realized he upon approaching it, he sees that it is clamped. The clamp being a term for booted, which I learned today researching the movie. And so he was upset about that. And then he notices the car rental agency, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's really silly. It's like, okay, you have to open the store at the perfect timing or else you're not going to get it. It's really tricky. Doors are very tricky. So it's kind of some insight. Oh, doors are tricky. Interesting. And there are the 2 characters inside who I adore. And they're not really giving him a choice of the car. They're just kind of like, you're getting this car. And do you want a GPS? You want a GPS. He's kind of like, okay, sure. Okay, I'll take a GPS if you think that's what's best for me. Just kind of like people pleasing a little bit. He's like, okay, sure.
Yeah, he accepts the GPS and gets in the vehicle. And I think I want to say, is he singing right when he gets in or something like that? But at some point, the GPS begins to interact with him. He hears a voice coming from this machine. He's like, as we all would, what is going on? And it asks him the question, would you like to go on a journey and he's like, I don't know, I'm already going on a journey and I think by this time, in some manner, way, shape or form, he gets to the wedding, right? And I don't remember if the GPS talked to him before or after the wedding, but he does get to the wedding, and that's when the story kind of really starts to unfold, right?
Yeah, and the GPS is like, say it like you mean it. You want to go on a big, beautiful journey, David? He's like, and then you only see like the window and him like yelling it, but it's quiet. And then, he arrives at the wedding.
Yeah. And so I don't think we get a lot of context as far as who the people why he's there, who he knows there. There are a few people that he does know and interact with, but at some point he ends up getting introduced to the character played by Margot Robbie. That initial introduction lasts maybe 10 or 15 seconds. They don't really, maybe there was a question about the weather or something like that, or how they got there, whatever, but they then depart. The next scene is...
Before you go to that, something that really stuck out to me was in the movie, he asked, can I get you a drink? And she's like, no. And that was really significant to me because you don't see that in real life. You don't see that in movies where a man asks a woman a drink, she says no, and he's like, okay, that's fine. And he just kind of goes off on his own. It's more like, what, girl? You don't want a drink from me? Or she might even say yes just to people please, or so on and so forth. So that really stood out to me. That was like, she knows her no. She's like, no, I don't want to drink. And then they part ways. And then eventually come back together. And they have a pretty deep conversation. She ends up asking him to marry her. Like, will you marry me? Like, and he's like, you've you've broken a lot of men's hearts. And she's like, yeah, and I've been really heartbroken before. Do you believe in marriage and all this stuff? And eventually she asked, well, do you want to go dance? And he's like, no, I don't dance. But then ends up seeing her dance with another man. And he's like, no, like, I regret that so much right away. Why did I say I don't dance? And I feel like that says a lot. What do you think, Cass?
I think she was already maybe dancing a little differently and with him than maybe some other people. Like she said no. I don't know. I mean, it's possible she's like that with everybody, and that's just kind of how she reels them in, the chase.
Uh-huh.
But it might not be that. I mean, because the way that they kind of portray it, like when they're both like the shot in the windows of their hotel rooms, and they're both kind of just sitting there, kind of disembodied. That with the other guy, that she's not her whole self in that moment, and he is, I think, wanting to really move through what's going on with him and how he interacts with potential romantic partners, but he's just still. So.
Yeah, that was sad. Yeah.
Yeah. He was doing some reevaluating, like you say. He was, I think they both either seemed to have some guards up, or they were kind of trying to test the waters to see, if I poke here, how is that going to affect things? And ultimately, they parted ways. And I think on David's behalf, he was certainly regretting how he handled that situation. But post that, so wedding ends and all that ends, and they leave. The next scene is him eating a burger just at a restaurant, right?
Yeah, the GPS
and
asks, like, he kind of is like, I have nothing left to lose. I'm just going to listen to this GPS and see where it takes me, because why not? I lost that girl last night, so here we go. And yeah, he's there eating the cheeseburger.
And he's just going about his business. Sorry, Cass, go ahead.
Just funny how they call it a fast food burger. It's Burger King. Right. It's a Whopper.
Right. Which again, when the movie started, it sounded, and him using his real voice, Colin Farrell using his real voice as his character. I wasn't sure if they were in Europe, if it was placed in Europe or not. And then she said Burger King, fast food. She has an American accent. Where it was obviously wasn't pivotal to the story, but that was a question I had. Anyway, so at some point he looks up, and it's the booth. There's like two booths in front of him that you see people there. And then all of a sudden you see Margot Robbie's character's head like move to the side where he can see her as well. So he's kind of surprised to see her. And then she looks up and sees him. And this moment kind of stuck out for me, because we could see his face and the regret by not really kind of putting himself out there the night, the night before. But he kind of still hesitates when he sees her, and she kind of looks, and then ultimately she gets up and goes to join him at the table. Mm-hmm. Which, I don't know if there's any significance to that or not, but there is, it seemed like a kind of an interesting piece to it. So they began kind of conversing, and, that's when she calls it a fast food burger, and he's like, yeah, it's the best one. It's the Whopper. So they have their little back and forth there.
Yeah.
And so I'll hand it back over.
They're having like some matching energies happen, like, oh, it also told you to come here, and also, we're both here together and we're in the same place, and it's kind of like, oh, cool, like, oh, that's so nice, we're here together. It's kind of the sweet little vibes. And they, it's time to go back home, but Sarah's car is not working. So the GPS says, pick up Sarah. And so now they're riding in the car together. And they're adventuring into some wooded areas. They're like walking along, and there is a very random red door in the middle of the woods, and they're like, what is this? And what's behind it? Nothing's behind it? Weird. Okay, I guess we're gonna go inside. And that's the first like door they open together. And it's a lighthouse. It's one of David's memories of being in a lighthouse. And they go up to the top. They're looking at the view. It's absolutely beautiful. And she says, or he says that last time he was there, it just felt kind of empty. Like you were in the most beautiful place in the world, but he was alone and he just felt so much emptiness. And she's like, well, how do you feel now? And then the scene changes. So it's like, well, you're with me now. So how does that feel? What is it like? So I'm wondering how you might feel, Fred, if you were David, and Cass, how you might feel if you were Sarah in that moment.
With my cheaper two lens, I certainly can recognize the difference. Like if I'm somewhere by myself, especially if it's a whole vacation or a whole like time with myself versus with someone else, it absolutely would be different. I feel like in that particular situation, especially if my dating situation is having met the person the night before, it would feel somewhat vulnerable, but not super significant because it is a past memory that, we're just spending a few hours here. But I think the looking at the vast nothingness and then having someone next to you would then make it a lot less lonely for me, I would say.
I think that being on, having a high vantage point and seeing the greater is that long view, that perspective that is more available to people who have more developed inner parents. So being up there and feeling connected to the greater, feeling small, all of these things, but like he's feeling small and alone, is interesting as a starting point. And yes, there are redos because she's on his side, but because they just got started, I think it's interesting just for them to have established David feels lonely when he's up on the top of a lighthouse looking out at the greater. And then later, as they go through their journey and they get to another spot when the GPS says, you guys deserve a break. They get to another high vantage point, and it's very different sense there. Not just because of their dance, but I think because of the redos that they've had in between. The break is an assessment point, a time to say, well, this is what it was like then doing this thing, and this is what it's like now. And he didn't seem to feel very lonely. That was also when the second time they're hiking up this picturesque little hill and looking out. They're very, very matchy, which I don't know that we've talked about the indulging in the fighting rhythms so much yet on the podcast, but Judith Kestenberg studied early childhood developmental movements, and they're movements that are like indulging rhythms, so very matchy, very soothing. And then there are the fighting rhythms that can be more mismatch. So like twist is the first fighting rhythm. Being able to sniff something that's like, no, I don't want that. Or even just being able to twist your eyes away from your caregiver and look back and there you went on a journey. Nice to see you again, Chelsea.
Went on a big, bold, beautiful journey there.
Yeah. So when we have those mismatching dances, if they're celebrated and by our caregivers, and the caregivers aren't like shot into fight flight when that happens, then those movements like twist, those fighting rhythms and mismatching aren't so much adrenalized. They're not as fight flight. They're more with a sense of ease. But many of us don't get that in the world that we live in, as a lot of the fighting rhythms are inhibited, or how dare you treat your mother that way? Don't kick at me while I'm trying to get you dressed and things like that. And really, those mismatching dances are how we individuate, how we find out that we are separate This is me, and this is not me. And they're very important. So they go in waves. So there's some indulging rhythms, but the fighting rhythms will come afterwards. There's indulging, fighting, indulging, fighting. So when it seemed pretty clear that like the different kind of acts of the movie sort of have that with David and Sarah. They're indulging and then there's fighting, and how much as they move along are they bringing that stuff, their old baby stuff, to each other. Is at the end when they say they just want to go home. That's right after the car set on fire, and I'm like, okay, yeah, fighting rhythms there.
Yeah, right. They literally
Yeah.
kissed at the top, and then the fire, or yeah, then the car like exploded, basically.
Yeah. Their vehicle is not available, and it's on fire, and then they're like arguing, and it seems like they're bringing some of that to each other. They're also attacking themselves. Like, I always do this. I'm a monster. But then they say, I want to go home. And so when they go to those doors, they are able to meet their inner parents, and bring that stuff to the inner parents, and do some healing. So it was really lovely to see those patterns, and that the way that they did that growth was so cheaper too.
That was beautiful, right? Yeah, because David comes back to his childhood home and doesn't realize until he talks to his mother that he's actually his dad. And he's 57 years old. He's his 57-year-old dad. And the mother says, your son is crying upstairs. Like, go comfort him. And he goes up there and he comforts his younger self, which is really beautiful. And they have lovely moments. They eventually are playing video games together. And then Margot Robbie's character, Sarah, goes home and realizes her mother is alive there and on the couch asleep. And that was really powerful for her. And she goes inside and she's like, I'm so bad with men, Mom. And she's like, wait, hold on, you're 12 years old. And then she's like, I'm 12 years old. But Mom, let's play pretend. Let's play pretend. And why am I so bad with men? And her mom says, I am too. And I don't know, I'm trying to figure it out. And they're just there laying together, and she's got her mashed potatoes after swimming practice, watching one of her favorite movies together. And she knows how tired her mom is, but her mom is like, she's the of course mom. She's the yes mom. Yes, like whatever you want, sweetie. And really comforting for Sarah. And after leaving their childhood home, they go to return their cars. But
yes.
But before that, I mean, so much happens.
Yeah, so they were in that lighthouse, and that was just a very short interaction. They go back to the vehicle, and then they reach another strange door. That's the entrance to her favorite art museum. That's when she talks to David about she and her mother visited very often there before she passed away while Sarah was in college. And then she talks about, she tells him this later, but after they leave the art museum, they end up in a greenhouse that then opens the doors to David's high school. The day that they enter his high school, he's back at like 15 or 16, and they interact with the play director. And ultimately, the scene guides us through the whole production of the play. It's interesting because in this scene, there is a production going on, and Colin Farrell is playing his younger self, but he goes off script. both for the actual play, but also in the script of his life. And so I'm watching this, and as I mentioned to you before, I am a fan of the time travel, like the Back to the Futures and Butterfly Effect. And so the fact, I was curious and wondering if the creative team was going to unravel this or talk about the effect of him going off of his life script, right? We never went there, which is fine for the plot. But anyway, he ends up, expressing these feelings and telling the future of his of his peer at the time and what she goes through and doesn't with him and all of that. Because of that, Margot Robbie is in the audience listening to the play, and then she stands up and helps him finish the scene of the play, and then they depart to the next part of the plot of the movie. But it was just very interesting to see how they kind of agree with each other to get on this journey together. And that kind of was one of the first scenes that, they kind of showed each other how they could maybe be on this journey together. So I found that pretty interesting as well. And so it was after the visit to the high school and the production where they leave the production, and Sarah talks to David about not pursuing her, right? About how, she doesn't like what she mentions to the mom later on about how she's not good with men and how she hurts them and so forth. And at that point, the car stops and they are in a black box theater of sorts. And she talks to David about being guilty or feeling guilty about, she was with her college professor instead of with her mom the night that she passed away in the hospital. And so I can continue with the plot, or if you, Chelsea, you want to pick back up.
Yeah, well, it's funny too, because I thought, oh no, is what he's going to do now in this time travel going to affect his life? And it didn't even go there. And I thought that was really interesting and cool. And I wasn't worried anymore. I was like, okay, phew. But it's just like it's like symbolic redos, basically going back, being able to tell the girl you had a crush on, you loved her, and what happens, and you should have loved me. And like the chasing is like a big part of it. Like he would chase the women and then they'd love him. And then eventually he was like underwhelmed or unfulfilled because all he wanted to do is make the woman happy, but while doing that, losing himself because he was people pleasing in a way, and then realize how unfulfilled he was with the person he was with. And that goes to eventually, that comes forth when the two of them reach like the final door. And they're both like, we're not going there. And the GPS is like, you're going there. And they're like, okay. And she's like, David says, by the way, I was engaged. And Sarah says, by the way, I'm a monster. You're about to see me be a monster. And that's when they enter the cafe and see their exes there. And they all like are talking together, like on each other's side, like facing each other. And Sarah's like, I'm going to leave you tonight. You care too much for me. I don't like it. I'm overwhelmed. And David's like, I'm underwhelmed. And that's that. And then they leave. And they're like, whoa, is this going to work for us? Like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if it's worth all the pain, and I'm going to hurt you. You're going to hurt me. I don't want to underwhelm you. You're going to overwhelm me. Let's just not. And so we're nearing the end of the movie where they go to return the cars. And they're like, the people that work there are like, wouldn't it be great if there was a car dealership that just like set people up and put people together and it was the perfect match and all this stuff. And that's like, it's so interesting because part of the movie, Sarah's like, I'm sure you've met the right person. Because he's like, I just haven't met the right person yet. I'm sure you've met the right person 100 times, but you just weren't ready, that kind of thing.
This is really useful for how we work in Chief or Two with romantic partners. It makes me think of the book Monsters in Love, because we're all monsters. Mm-hmm. We all have patterning that is less than ideal. Many of us, naturally, when we're in a romantic partner relationship, our baby stuff comes up, and we're monsters, bringing our fighting rhythms to each other. In Chief or Two, we work on being on each other's side, so as peers and romantic partners. So Fred and I are peers. We're on each other's side. And if something comes up for us, rather than bringing it to each other, we direct that energy at a coach. Like Chelsea can bring her energy to me or to Fred. So understanding where you can bring your big baby stuff, because as indulging as things can be sometimes, the fighting rhythms will come up, or old stuff will awaken, that mismatch, the claws and jaws, and it's not useful to bring them to each other. Peers cannot parent each other. It feels yuck. That's why Sarah says she cheats, because she's wanting to bring her stuff to somebody, but it kind of feels yuck. I'm not going to bring it to you. I have so much. I need to bring it to you, but you can't handle it all. I'm going to bring it to you. But it feels yuck and it's not working. The way to repattern those dances so that you can be in a healthy, sustainable romantic partnership are to bring the baby things and to do those redos with an elder. Which I think they're sort of doing with the GPS along the way. I feel like the GPS is a little more all-knowing than, but in a way, it's sort of like the GPS sort of reminded me of like just the body's inherent knowing that we have inhibited for generations. So instead of, having the GPS take you to a particular door, when you work with a coach, it will become apparent. Your body will know the movement that wants to awaken, that was inhibited and it is now laced with fight flight, to have that redo with the coach, so that if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, the end of the movie definitely, or this part definitely helped to kind of bring it all together. And they definitely had a few moments of, uncertainty about themselves in relationships, about each other. And I think, what Cass is referring to as far as the work as Chief of Two Coaches we do for couples, in enabling them to understand where the energy goes, how to do what's called a safe share, and remain on their own sides of the street, but on the side of their partner, I think is key. And I think the journey helped David and Sarah realize how much they had to take care of on their own sides of the street, and how much they had to reconcile within themselves or come to terms with, and figure out, okay, so what is next for me in my life, romantically or otherwise. I think, as we mentioned, being able to have the redo of maybe pushing into some of their actual parents or parental figures as they went through the journey, and then also being able to see the peers that they interacted with throughout their lives or at various points in their lives, I think helped them get a little bit of Chief of Two in terms of being able to do the push, do some of the peer practices, and ultimately, before the movie ends, they're able to come to terms with their actual feelings. They did have, now again, I don't know how long this journey was, but they fell in love during it. Great. So, he did profess how he felt before they departed, and like she was not having it at first. And so then she ultimately finds where he lives, and the movie ends with her running to his stoop, and he's just sitting there, and she gives her speech about having come to terms with some things and wanting to try to see if they could have a life together. And then ultimately their final door is the door of his home where they walk through together. And so that was a nice, interesting way to end the movie. And I think ultimately, drive home a few realities of, you never know what life is going to throw your way. So being a little bit more open could be positive. And then certainly, like I just said, in terms of handling your own inner things that are going on and reconciling your decisions within yourself, your historical decisions within yourself, and then maybe, doing what is necessary to close some chapters with some relationships or set some new boundaries with some family. And then ultimately you can have the space you need for the relationship to come into your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite line there in her speech at the end was basically she said, "You're worth trying for, and I'm scared, but I think we could be content together." That line really just like hit home for me. Like, we could be content. It doesn't have to be this crazy up and down thing.
Yeah, I think somewhere in the movie it said somebody said we're talking about choosing content, and that I think is paramount. Okay, yeah. Her mom was talking about choosing to be content. I think getting to the point of that as humans. I mean, we as coaches might, we do have significant more knowledge to maybe help ourselves, but humans in general, that whole contentment piece and where we find it, when we choose it, what all we think we need to have in order to be able to reach it. I think that's a huge concept. I'm really glad you highlighted that, Chelsea.
There's lots of chief or two movements in these ideas of happiness versus contentment. I think contentment is probably maybe the idea of homeostasis, of being able to exist in play dance and have, when you're done moving around, to be able to naturally rest and digest. So to have a life less mobilized by fight, flight, and more with a sense of safety in your body, and being as much your whole self as possible with as many situations and as many people. Happiness sounds like the way that they were doing it was a very adrenalized reach, grab, pull, as that desperate baby reach, grab, pull for their romantic partners to feed them. In Chief or Two, reach, grab, pull is a pretty big move. I think that one, I'm trying to think how I would lead it right now, because I think starting with deep nourishment, core awareness might be nice. So with deep nourishment, core awareness, that's a navel radiation practice. Those practices are all about noticing how okay or not okay is it to allow the energy that originates in your navel to radiate outward and move your body. Deep nourishment, core awareness is just a tiny first step, noticing your belly. You might bring a hand there or not. And how okay or not okay is it to notice your belly? Can you sense any energy there or not? And if you can that energy move? Does it make you want to move? Like I noticed Chelsea doing some waving your arms out, some more sea star or star energy, or move your leg, shift your position, finding more support. Do you feel like leaning back or some sway?
Sway.
Yeah. But when we can notice our belly, then we might notice how possible it is to allow the energy that originates in our core to travel up, down the arm, and through the hand to reach for something. Reach for one hand and then the other. Nancy's got, and Fred's got a beverage. So they're able to reach for something, noticing that their belly is feeling thirsty and reaching for it, bringing that. Yeah, we reach for all kinds of things. And our first reach, grab, pull is when we're a tiny baby. Ideally, we're placed skin to skin on the body we came out of and able to do a birth crawl to the breast to get our first drink, bringing nutrients in through our mouths instead of our umbilical cord. So you can imagine that reach, grab, pull is a really big one, can bring up a lot of stuff, a lot of mommy stuff, a lot of feeling I need this to survive, because when you're a baby, you do need that to survive. So we can reach for substances, we can reach for people, we can reach for things that are not good for us, that won't satisfy the deeper nurturing desire that we have. Mm-hmm. So in terms of happiness, the idea of happiness, that definitely sounded like a reach, grab, pull for anything that can just make me feel better. But long term, the things that David and Sarah were reaching for did not make them feel better. Mm-hmm. And then they shamed themselves for wanting to do that reach, grab, pull. So the claws came out at themselves. Mm-hmm. And it made it hard for them to be on the side of peers or reach for parents or elders to help them. But in their big, bold, beautiful journeys, they were able to do some really beautiful stuff on each other's side. But talking about romantic partner worth, it can sound so lonely. Like, oh, I'm noticing my body and bringing my stuff to the coach. What am I supposed to do with my partner? It feels so separate. But what they were able to do is celebrate each other and each other's big, bold, beautiful journey as they went on it side by side. Mm-hmm. And that made it even more big and bold and beautiful. Mm-hmm. And at the end, I love the end credits so much. It seemed to illustrate that so well, because they seem to be kind of like in the art museum. I think they're doing that painting kind of thing again. The Renoir, I think. And they're facing away from each other. We wouldn't necessarily do it like that in Chi for Two. We kind of sit next to each other. So we're actually on each other's side for peers, but they are on each other's side, kind of having their own experience with whatever they're looking at. And then they can get up and come together and dance together. And that was really beautiful to see. It was very Chi for Two.
So Chi for Two. Beautifully said.
It was.
Yeah, the big, bold, beautiful journey. It reminds me when Dee says, the hero's journey. We go on the hero's journey the first year of the Chi for Two training, learning about ourselves and figuring out how to get by in this world in a healthier way. Well, thank you, listeners, for listening and for maybe watching. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to email us at chi42podcast@gmail.com. And I'm Chelsea Szegidewicz.
I'm Fred Shelton.
I'm Cas Pryor.
Thank you so much. We'll catch you next time.
Bye, everyone. Take care.